Okay, everyone, let's start that motor up. Let's get this episode happening. It's episode 415. This is Blind Magic in Alice Springs. I'm Murray Stewart, your host, and you are the reason. You are absolutely the reason. Inspirational people with inspirational stories. They are often the people who are our role models and who therefore shape our lives just by being the people who they are. If I think of the most incredible inspirational people in my life, I go back to my childhood. When I was 6 years of age, and a man called Clem Roworth came into our life. He was totally blind, just like myself and my identical twin brother. He was the general manager of the Royal Blind Society in Newcastle, New South Wales, the port city of the Hunter Valley, which is where I was born and bred. A real gentleman, a steady leader, a wonderful man, a great role model. He taught me and my brother Braille at 6 years of age, and he also taught our mother Braille, so she could homeschool us utilising Braille. An absolutely marvellous individual. When we were a couple of years older, a Baptist minister called Mr. Tully, that's who we knew him as, Mr. Tully, he came into our lives, and through the Baptist church, they sponsored a teacher to come all the way from China to teach both myself and my brother at the Baptist church in Newcastle, as at that stage we had not been permitted to be integrated into the education system. So the Baptist church flew this wonderful, wonderful lady from China out. Her name was Miss Ip, and she was totally blind as well. Miss Ip. I remember she was a real character, but a very, very kind woman who tolerated a lot, because myself and my brother had boundless energy. Did we give her curry? We used to play fight during our lunch breaks. That's right, we used to bash into one another, and as she was totally blind, what she had to go on was her sense of hearing. And I remember she said to us one day, "What is that smacking sound I can hear?" I'm sure she knew we were basically punching one another up. She wasn't that pleased about it, but what could she do really? What could she do? But she was a very patient, kind, wonderful lady, great role model. And when you consider that she was a woman, a totally blind woman from China, what a powerful woman she must have been to become a teacher in that country with all of the disadvantages that there were in those days anyway, way back. That would have been, around 1970, I guess, thereabouts. Extraordinary woman, and once again, an incredible inspiration. Then there was Miss Diamond, beautiful young woman who was also a very, very gentle soul. And I'm not sure how she came into our life, both myself and my brother, Martin. I'm not sure how she came into our life. Maybe it was through the church again. But she took her time out to teach both myself and Martin pottery, that is, using clay and all sorts of other mediums to produce artwork of all types. Once again, an incredible young lady with incredible patience, and gave up a lot of her time to be with us, to be a role model, to be a champion, and to be a guide. She played the guitar, I remember that. And she used to sing. I remember she used to sing Killing Me Softly. And she sung it beautifully. Yeah, I just remember her very, very fondly. I wonder what Miss Diamond is up to today. What an extraordinary name, by the way. Yeah, I don't know where she is these days. But probably the most inspirational person who influenced my life was someone that I only met once. And I used to, in my mid-20s, I was, as a myotherapist, treating clients at a polio clinic in Sydney, as I understand it. I'm 60. I have to think back. But yeah, I'm sure it was in Sydney, yeah, and I was treating polio patients. And in this oxygen tent, there was this one extraordinary man who had every reason to be negative, every reason to be miserable. But no, he was running a little business out of this oxygen tent. That was his home. He had no possessions. That was his home. That was his life. That was his existence. So he ran an engraving business within this oxygen tent. Yeah, that's right. He used to engrave little badges, all sorts of things. You bring it, he engraved whatever you wanted on it. And I remember children used to come and see him to have their names and maybe their birth dates put on these little badges. And he used to send these cups and badges and trinkets all over Australia, all from this oxygen tent. What an extraordinary story. What an extraordinary man. There's a lot of complaining goes on these days and playing the victim. Well, there's someone who had every reason to be dissensional about his circumstances, but he found a purpose. He found a reason to not only inspire himself, but to inspire others. That's always stuck in my mind. He has always been an inspiration to me because whenever I feel down, whenever I feel low, I think of someone like him. And I think, you know what? If he can find his sense of purpose in his very, very small world, then we all can. We all can. We can. a mighty, mighty figure. He has always been in my life whenever I have felt low. Of course, there's my brother, Martin, who is incredibly inspirational to me and now to others. You know his story. You've heard me interview him. Ran over by a train coming out of Richmond Station, surviving in a 1 in a billion chance of surviving. He did. Not only has he survived, but he's thrived. Once again, a truly remarkable man and a truly remarkable story. I mean, just getting through something like that and coming out the other side positive and together is inspiration within itself. But not only has he done that, but now he is inspiring others. I have seen him change for the better, would you believe? For the better. He was always a wonderful human before the accident, but his character has developed even further. He's certainly mellowed, and now, with his built-up wisdom, experience and strength, he's a wonderful inspiration to others. So who has been your guiding light? Who has been your role model? Who has been the most inspirational people in your life? If you think about it, you will find them. You will. And maybe you could take the time to remember those people in your silent moments and use that inspiration to get you through your challenges. I certainly do. The tales I've told you today were from a very, very long time ago. But in my quiet moments, I do think of Miss Diamond. I do think of Miss Ip and Clem Roworth. Oh, there was another fellow as well called Hans Wild. Yeah, that's right, Hans Wild, and he was a remedial masseur. So what a name for a remedial masseur. Once again, totally blind. And probably was the inspiration for who I became as a myotherapist. In fact, without doubt, he was my role model, because it was through his work and his gentleness, his mentorship, that I thought, you know what, I wouldn't mind doing what he does when I grow up. And so I did. Yes, he was a wonderful German Australian. His brother, who wasn't vision impaired, but he was a chiropractor. And Hans Wild, yes, I've got the name right, I promise you, a remedial masseur called Hans Wild. But he actually owned a gymnasium in Newcastle, and through his mentorship, he lit my fire to become a myotherapist, which I am today. As I said, I wonder who the most incredible people in your life have been. And I wonder why. Is it because they share similarities with you, as some of my heroes certainly have? Or is it because they did something incredibly impressive that you took note of, I wonder why they are the most inspirational people in your life. This has been episode 415 of Blind Magic Communications production.